Hello, Mr. Golnick. Good morning, good night, good afternoon, depending on the time you watch this. Today, I will be presenting to you my project I did on Karl Marx, a person whom I admire quite a bit for the way he changed politics, and he was just an interesting man in general, and it was interesting to look more into the philosophical side of his studies. So we begin with his early life. Karl Marx was born in the Kingdom of Prussia, which is now modern day West Germany, on May 5th, 1819. He grew up in a non-religious Jewish family, and this aspect of non-religious religiosity would later be reflected in many of his works where he advocated for atheism and a more atheist state. He was the third of nine children, and his love for philosophy and most of his information on philosophy in his youth came from his father, who was very interested in the likes of Kant and Voltaire. Karl Marx, not much is known about his youth, according to what I read, but what is known is that at age 16 in 1835, he went to the University of Bonn, where he wanted to study literature, but due to his father's wishes, he studied law. In this school is where truly his political side started to show. He met up with several political radicals or communists back in the time through poetry clubs, which he used to meet other people and to share his love for literature and writing. He would then later transfer to the University of Berlin to study philosophy, where then he would get a career and receive a PhD in philosophy. In terms of his personal life, he married a young woman called Jenny von Westphalen, whom he had known since childhood. At this age, when Karl Marx had married his new wife, he began to write more and more about his politics and his ideas, specifically his socialist and communist ideas, which did not sit well with people in his country. So he had to flee with his wife and to London, where he would then have 6 children, only 3 of whom would survive childhood. He often lived in fear of persecution and had to take on pseudonyms when renting out hotel rooms or doing anything really, because he really had a lot of people against him and against the way he thought. He would then later die on March 15th, 1883, of bronchitis in London. Some of his achievements and publications are quite famous. Of course, Karl Marx was a communist, and a lot of these ideologies were reflected in the books that he wrote. His most famous book, for sure, was the Communist Manifesto, which was popularized actually by Lenin, who was the leader of the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917, because it's said that Lenin was the one who truly revived his works, and that had he not been the head of a revolution and someone who had studied Marxism probably would not be well known today. So, as one of his famous publications, we can include the Rhineland newspapers, which was where he began his career in writing politically themed literature. And then we have the Communist Manifesto that followed a few years later, and his famous 3-volume book, The Capital, or Das Kapital. Many of his political theories were based on communism and on the theory of from each according to his ability and to each according to his need. And in his book, the Communist Manifesto, he really develops his ideas of communism. And he really is a person who looks for the interest of everyone, and he believes in a revolution where people will control what they create, and that there will be a rule of the proletariat, which is the working class, the people who truly create the value of work in this country. He wrote the manifesto with a close friend called Friedrich Engels, who was also a communist. And speaking specifically on the side of philosophy, he developed the theory of dialectical materialism, which fundamentally attributed material objects and the value of as the object of societal change, in the sense that we live in a world where everything is material, and that our society is defined by the organization and distribution of what is material. And the dialectical aspect of it is about how conversation and analysis and thinking about these about like talking about different things and aspects of society would help us move towards a better future. Ultimately, many of his ideas led to revolutions in thought, and it really expanded the world's view on the left and communism as a whole. Karl Marx's legacy has inspired countless revolutions and movements over the years, specifically, as previously mentioned, by Vladimir Lenin. And from his theory, we have seen the separation of many other schools of thought, such as Maoism, and Leninism, and Castroism. He continues to inspire socialists around the world and is the father of what is known as modern communism. And he is sort of the ideal or the lighthouse for all of those who search for a world in which we want prosperity for people. And then here I have the sources I use, which are mostly his Wikipedia, specifically on dialectical materialism, and on his biography from Britannica. Thank you so much.